Welcome to another Family First Wednesday presented by Montana's Peer Network, the Family Division. My name is Kayla Myers. I am a family peer coordinator, but I used to be a family peer supporter here in Billings. I raised a child with a he's on the special healthcare side of things. He has autism and is nonverbal, and I have my own lived experience with having behavioral health diagnoses. I If you guys aren't already a member of Montana's Peer Network Families Division, it is a free membership. And I put that link in the comments. And so you can just go and sign up. And every month you'll get a notification when we're having the next Family First Wednesday, who the presenter is, and all of the legislative work that we've been doing for family peer support. That's updated on there. There's blogs, podcasts, and we also like to share different things that are happening in communities around the state of Montana. So if you guys ever have anything also that you guys would like to be shared in our newsletter, you could send over to Beth or I, and we can get that submitted. So today we have Tim Huck with us, and he is the executive director of the Spectrum Hope Fund. Oh man, I'm just making up my own acronyms and names for things today, apparently. So I will hand it over to you, and I would ask that you guys save your questions until the end. We'll open that up for questions. But if you want to track your questions, or you can put them in the chat, and then I can read them off to Tim once he's finished. All right, the floor is yours.
Sweet. Well, first off, thank you guys for having me. Thank you, Kayla, for sitting on the board of this organization. It's already something a lot larger than I had originally pictured or imagined. As with anything, your idea kind of just flourishes and melds as you meet more people, and as people suggest things to you, as you meet other parents, especially in our autism community, which is a lot larger than you think. I was pleased to find out when we first got our diagnosis in 2018, we kind of felt that the community would be super small and how would we ever meet other parents, but it's actually quite large, which is amazing. So I'm just a regular dad of 3 kids. My wife is a stay-at-home now. We made that decision when we had our first child. He got to probably 18 months old, and he was stimming a lot, flailing his hands, jumping a lot. Wasn't necessarily walking very well, and he wasn't speaking very many, intelligible words. We couldn't understand what he was saying. He maybe had 4 or 5 words that you could actually understand what they were. Luckily, we were blessed with a really good pediatrician who, after voicing our concerns to her, she suggested that we go see a doctor to maybe get screened for autism. So naturally, after hearing that, it's your stomach kind of sinks, and you're like, well, what happens once we get this diagnosis? Is this a life-changing event? Is everything going to change? Like how we parent this child is everything different? Come to find out, yes, everything is changed forever. But after he was diagnosed right before the age of 2, then we started the long journey of getting into an ABA clinic, which is applied behavior analysis. That is a specialized therapy that autistic children need. Not every autistic child goes through that. I am a firm supporter of ABA therapy simply because it did change our son's life. So fast forward 3 years, he went to ABA therapy from the age of 2 to his last day was the day before he started kindergarten. So 3.5 years, I would guess. And it's extremely expensive. In Montana, we're right around the $200 an hour range at a clinic for ABA therapy, which is wild because our child, for example, had to go for 8 hours a day, five days a week. So 40 hours a week. The first bill we got from insurance, or I guess it was the first overview that the clinic billed our insurance, was $19,000 for the very first month. And as a dad, I'm sitting there reading this going, holy cow, we don't have to pay for this amount, thank gosh, because of insurance. But excuse me, our insurance was still expensive. So we did not have an insurance plan that covered any part of ABA therapy. We had to get a separate plan through the clinic. So my child had a separate premium for himself at $350 a month, and then we had a $6,500 out of pocket each year that we had to meet. So it was right under $11,000 a year for him to be able to do ABA therapy. We made that decision as parents, knowing we could not afford that this was the best route for him. After speaking with the clinic and speaking with our pediatrician, we just decided this is what we have to do. We'll figure out how to pay for it later. I was fortunate enough to have a business credit card with a $10,000 limit that I maxed out all 3 years to pay for this, knowing I'd have to pay that back at a crazy interest rate. But nevertheless, it was still a way for me to do so, because there was no way I was going to come up with an extra mortgage payment essentially a month to pay for this therapy. He does kindergarten. Kindergarten goes great. He's in first grade now. Right when school starts, well, probably 8 months ago would be August, I had this dream that I gave another family who we're connected to, simply because, like Kayla knows, you just meet other parents at the clinic at drop off, especially, or pickup, and you just start talking to them. You become friends with them. Your kids probably hang out. My child, his best friends are still the autistic kids he met at the clinic. So we still see parents often. I just had a dream that we got well off in life, and I handed them a check and said, hey, pay down your balance at the clinic, assuming they had a balance like we did at one point. Wake up the next day, call my mentor, ask her, hey, this is something that I really think I should do. As a parent who had to struggle to pay that off, how can we make this happen? So the Google search started of how to found a nonprofit. It was a lot harder than I thought. It takes a ton of work just founding that, let alone the IRS process of filling out your 1023 form to actually get their big rubber stamp of approval that says, hey, you're a 501c3, congratulations. You can get money how you please, basically, and it's a taxable write-off. What they don't tell you is the process is totally backwards. You have to build out your board of directors first, write your bylaws, your articles of incorporation, before you apply with the IRS. So I took 30 meetings with people who I felt would be an important piece to this cause, who I felt would be good teammates, team members, basically, before I landed on the 7 board members that we have. Built everything out myself, as far as the literature, the website, our programs up to this point, events up to this point. Kayla is finally on the team now, so she will be helping out with that. Fast forward to now, here we are. We have our rubber stamp of approval from the IRS as of the very beginning of January. That was a really emotional day, finding that letter in the mailbox, them saying, yeah, you're approved, because I did it myself. I didn't hire a lawyer to file, which everyone said you'd have to. So that was really cool. But now we're in the fundraising phase of just gaining funds. The main goal of this was to fundraise for scholarships, so we could award scholarships to applicants, i.e. the parents who have children who are enrolled in ABA therapy. They go to their clinic, they fill out our application, we talk it over, we approve them, most likely, hopefully. We approve them, then we take a check directly to the clinic and pay off a certain amount on their balance. Kind of just as an angel donation, I guess you could say, but we're awarding them as scholarships. We are not handing families money. We are just paying it on their behalf. We still have an intensive approval process, which is just our checks and balances, stuff that has to be done for people to get our okay to be awarded. Until that can happen, we're still fundraising, so we actually have money to give away. That is the name of the game, is to raise money so we can give it all away. That is our whole goal. Some alarming things I found out when going through this is how prevalent autism really was. In the early 2000s, it was 1 in every 150 kids. As of 2023, which is already 2 years ago, it was 1 in 36. So I can only imagine we're probably approaching the high 20s as far as 1 in maybe 29 by now, which is wild considering Billings is a town of 120,000 roughly. We have a lot of autistic children slash people in Billings alone. Just at the pediatric therapy clinic that we went to, Kayla goes there too. At any given time, there's 22 to 25 kids doing ABA therapy. When I first had this idea, my very first meeting was with the owner and director of that clinic, who we obviously know well since we went there for so many years. She loved the idea. Without telling me private information, I just asked her, hey, what kind of outstanding balance is there through this clinic? Like, this idea I'm creating, is there actually a need for it, or is my wife and I just a random offshoot of people who do owe money, and most people's insurance cover it? She said that is absolutely not the case. Most people are like us, like everybody, paying tons of money for this service. She gave me one example of a family who owes upwards of $20,000, and they can't afford to pay much, so they're just on a payment plan for essentially the next 20 years, just paying that off. Their child does not even do ABA anymore because they aged out. So having a debt like that would be really stressful, right? I always tell people, this is a debt. We technically are working on paying off a debt, but this is not a debt us as parents ask for. This is not a student loan that you willingly signed up to do, to get an education. This is just a debt that most likely a parent took on, knowing they probably could not afford it at that moment, just so their child could get the benefits of ABA therapy and hopefully succeed in school. That's the primary goal, is to get them up to speed, basically, on whatever age level they should be at, so they can just integrate into public school smoothly. Now, naturally, most of them still have 504s and IEPs. Our son goes to school with a 504, so that is nice. But most of these kids need ABA therapy so they can interact, right? One of the biggest things with autism is the social interaction. Like, there's just connectivity issues where they don't know how to socialize with other kids. That they want to, or at least we assume that they want to. I can't put myself in my son's brain. There are definitely days where he wants to be by himself. The rest of the world does not exist. But getting them integrated into our society is the main goal, but while allowing them to still be autistic. I never want my child to have to go mask all day at school. And as a parent, we can't see if our children are masking at school, but you kind of have to assume they probably are. Just from all the parents I've spoken to since I launched this, that is most of their responses, is that their child has integrated into the school district, but they're masking all day. And then when they get home, we just call it, he gets autism. The second school's out, he's back to being autistic. I can't directly ask his classmates what he's like. We're talking to 7-year-olds. I don't know what he's like at school. I can't view that. We can just get reports from the teachers saying, yeah, they do their work. Most of the time, our child plays with himself, stays to himself, which breaks my heart because lots of days he eats lunch by himself. That's really sad. Being a child once, seeing kids sitting by themselves, it makes you think, I wonder if that kid was on the spectrum. Another alarming thing I saw was the fact that screening, although being noted by parents or caregivers, is still on a mass. It's still way behind, right? There's a hefty percentage of kids that are diagnosed by age 4, but there's other statistics from the CDC that say before the age of 2, there were notes being sent to the doctor, or the parents are telling the doctor, hey, we're seeing these signs, but no screening was done. That family just lost 2 years of critical intervention via ABA therapy or OT or speech. And those years are really important. Like the earlier, the better it is to get into ABA therapy. From what we understand, just talking to the clinics and being in the system for several years. So we were lucky. We caught it essentially before he was 2. That is not the case with everybody. I know people who just got a diagnosis and, their child is 5 or 6. That road's going to be a lot harder, because the brain develops so fast when you're a child. I think it's really important to get on these things right away. I've been telling parents, the amount of parents who have reached out to me via email or phone since this thing went public, just asking, hey, I think my child might have autism. What should I do? What are the avenues? That tells me one major thing is there's not a lot of resources out there telling parents what they should do. You can assume they're doing a Google search of what to do, but finding something in our community of saying, hey, here's a big page of just all these resources that you guys can do. Here's some suggestions. Here's some information that we've built out within our organization. I tell parents the number one thing is just be stern with your pediatrician. They work for you. If you unfortunately have a pediatrician who does not want to listen to your concerns, who are just brushing it off by saying, "Oh, the kid's only 2. He might just be a late developer, might just be a late walker." That was the thing my wife and I ran into with family members. So our first child happened to be diagnosed, so we were not parents before. You have zero clue when this baby pops out what you're supposed to do with it. He gets to the age of 18 months, we start seeing all these signs. Naturally, who's the immediate people in your family who you're going to ask who have had kids? Your parents. Our parents just naturally said, well, you were 18 months before you started walking, maybe just give them a couple more months. It's really easy to just listen to other parents who say, yeah, it's just slow developing. My kid didn't talk till they were 2.5 and now he's a chatterbox. That's great if that's the case, but it costs you nothing to set up an appointment with your doctor and to express these concerns, and I keep telling people, be stern. If your doctor's not listening to you, get a different one. They work for you. Unfortunately, doctors are probably seeing thousands of patients a year. They're probably overloaded with their patient load. So that's not a knock on doctors at all. I just think if you're seeing the doctor, they should listen to you. I don't see the harm in a pediatrician sending off for an autism diagnosis, a referral for that, because you have to have a referral to see the specialist who will then diagnose you. You can't do ABA therapy or anything else without referrals in the medical world, right? So I tell people to be nice, but I want parents to be stern with their pediatrician. Like we're who sees the kid all the time. Your pediatrician sees your kid 15 minutes every 6 months while they're young, and then once a year after that. Another huge part of this was events. So my original idea of just fundraising to pay off balances was more so like the GoFundMe route. When I first spoke to a lawyer about applying, he said he loved the idea, but he didn't think the IRS would go for that because essentially we're paying medical debt. And he said it sounded more so like a GoFundMe, whereas a public charity would be doing stuff forward facing. Because originally I wanted this to be anonymous. I did not want to be attached to this at all. I wanted to build everything, have people apply for this scholarship or donation. I would just personally write a check to the clinic and it would just be an angel donation. They would just get a thank you letter saying, hey, congratulations, we paid off X amount of dollars. Simply because I didn't want people knowing that it was me, especially in our friend group. For a couple reasons. I'm not doing this for vanity or self-fulfillment, although it is really fulfilling. I didn't want anyone to think I was doing it so I could become some public figure or some public face. The second reason, I didn't want there to be a conflict of interest if friends of ours are the ones who are struggling and had to apply. My board suggested I'm the face of this thing. I should be forward facing. We should do as much as possible. After a long talk, I agreed naturally. So here I am. But it evolved from just doing that to doing inclusive events. Like I stated before, we want our autistic children to have every life experience possible. I want them to go to baseball games. I want them to be able to go into a busy grocery store without getting overwhelmed. We want them to feel like they can go to the trampoline park, and not be judged because they jump differently or just because they may be stemming while they have fun. An autistic child stemming in public is actually pretty common. Ours does it all the time. Again, I can't speak for every autistic child. They're all different, of course, but I just wanted to get information out there so people know, hey, I won't be so quick to judge that parent because that child may not be naughty because he's having an outburst at the store. He might just be on sensory overload. They might just not know how to handle their emotions, which is a huge factor in autistic children. So then came along the events. We have 3 planned for 2025 already, just for the spring. I'm actively looking for more businesses who want to partner on that. We have our first one, which is the Brick by Brick event at Bricks and Minifigs. It's a Lego store. They have graciously donated their party room to us. That is a pre-registered event only. You can find it on our Facebook page. The tough thing with that, which I was talking to Kayla about, is I'm a parent of 3. There are a lot of people who have 1 child, but there are a lot of people who have more than 1 children. So that event being limited to 15 participants was tough because that's all the space we have in the party room at the Lego store. So we decided to make that recurring. So once a month, that event will be going. That way, different people can consistently sign up and do this. And that's just a free hour for you guys to bring your kid to come play with Legos. They can play in the big Lego bins. They can build whatever they want. And I got a business to sponsor each kid getting a free Lego minifigure at the end of the event. So for a very minimal investment, that was a way for a local realtor to get involved, which she loved. She had been asking how to participate, but she wasn't ready to, invest thousands of dollars. Events like these give people an option to get social media shout-outs. In her case, it was under $100, and she was able to sponsor the whole event. So I like to get really creative on our events and how we're partnering with businesses. It's a win-win for us, basically. The second event is our Get Air fundraiser. What Get Air does is they partner with nonprofits on any Thursday of the month. You get to choose your Thursday. It's from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. We get to go into Get Air, set up a booth. Anybody who comes into Get Air that night, hopefully for our event, they grab a single flyer off of our booth. If you present that flyer at checkout, it costs you nothing extra, but Get Air will donate 20% of the proceeds at the end of the night to our organization. So that's really nice. One creative thing I did with a local business, and I'm hoping to do with multiple local businesses, we happen to be doing that during Autism Awareness Month, which is April. So that event is April 3rd, Thursday, April 3rd at Get Air from 5 to 8. They have, Get Air is really good about doing the inclusive month, specialized socks. So the last several years, they've had autism awareness socks. They're $4.99 a pair. So as I was thinking how I could get a business involved, I got a business to donate the first 20 pairs for free for our first 20 guests. Naturally, I want to do a lot more than that. So the next business who approaches me or who I approach, they can choose to say, hey, I want to set aside $100 for you guys. That gets us 20 more pairs. That way we can say, hey, the first 40 people get a free pair of autism awareness socks. Just another creative way businesses can partner with us honestly, it's fairly inexpensive in the partnership sponsorship world as far as things go. We'll just have to blast that event out on social media here starting soon so we can gain a lot of traction, because obviously the more people who come, the more money that will be donated to our organization. The more money we get, then we can finally open up our scholarship program, which is the main goal of this. The third one, which is not set in stone as far as a date, is a sensory-friendly Meet Your First Responders event. So I'm partnering with the local police to bring the community out, including any kid with special needs. This is not limited to autism. Neither is the Get Air event. Well, none of them really are limited to autism. There's no rule that says if your kid has Down syndrome, they can't come to this event. We want everyone, everywhere, everybody together. That's kind of our goal. The idea with this was I wanted to bring out some special needs kids to an event where there's first responders, the police, and just talk to the cops. And for the police to let these kids know that in the event of an emergency, they're the good guys, right? I know lots of kids watch Paw Patrol, so they naturally know that, you know, firemen and the police are the good people. But we have a sticker on our vehicles on my son's side of the vehicle that says autistic child inside may react hostilely if you try to pull him out in the event of a wreck, something like that. In Kayla's situation, if they're in a car accident and she's incapacitated, they won't be able to talk to her son, you know, like to pull him out of the car. He won't be able to say anything if they ask him, hey, what's your name? That situation would be very difficult on everybody, let alone the fire department or the police who are pulling him out going, hey, we don't know what's wrong with this kid. He's just not speaking. So my goal with that was I want to introduce these kids to actual first responders so they can say, hey, we're the good guys. Take a look at my car. Here's some tips on here's how to dial 911 if you're not learning it in school. Just know that if you're in an accident, if you see us, we are there to help. If you're ever in danger, find a police officer. They love the idea so much that they are now bringing on the fire department and AMR, and we're making this an entire park day event while staying sensory friendly. So at whatever park we finally decide on, there'll be a station for police, there'll be a station for fire department, there'll be a station for AMR. Very spread out. That way the crowds aren't enormous. I have no idea how many people are going to show up to something like this. We're going to blast this on every single page. It's a lot different than the Lego event because that was limited. This one's public, so we want as many people who want to go have fun at a day at the park as possible. But I wanted to advocate for it being sensory friendly, right? So our idea is to spread the stuff out. The kids can go over here, talk to the ambulance people. If they get overwhelmed, they can walk off into the park somewhere. They can go to the playground in the park somewhere. Then they can talk to the fire department. The SWAT team will be there, the robots, the drones, the police dogs, all sorts of stuff. So this one's sounding like it's going to be pretty cool. And nobody's doing anything like this with the police department right now. So they were very grateful that I reached out. Those are just the first three events. I have lots of ideas for more. Kayla and I are actively working on another one that'll be really fun, I think, which is going to come up fast because Autism Awareness Month is kind of our month, right? So I'd like to do a lot of stuff during that. But this journey has just been so fulfilling. I've already had people recognize me from the radio shows or from podcasts and from stuff like this, saying, hey, we love what you're doing. Our kid was just diagnosed, a couple of days ago. What are the steps? I just want the SpectrumHopeFund.com to be a resource so we can advocate for, hey, we suggest you do these things. Or if you don't want suggestions, here's some steps. There's literature on there. What's a 504? What's an IEP? What is ABA therapy? Why is it so expensive? It's just really intense one-on-one therapy. It's not a drop-off daycare by any means. Our son was doing that full time. By the time he got to kindergarten, he was so bored in kindergarten because he had done all of that work and had much more intensive teaching and learning aside from kindergarten. He was bored. We could have had him skip kindergarten and just go to first grade. They did give us that option. We just chose not to. I don't see the benefit in that. He'll just be a little older when he graduates high school, which is no big deal. I just didn't want him to somehow fall behind jumping into first grade. So we opted to just put him in kindergarten, but it changed his life and it changed our life forever. It takes a lot to come back from that financially, as most ABA parents will tell you. Some of them probably never recover from that. I think it's really good on the clinics for allowing people to just take on that debt and to just do payment plans as opposed to saying, hey, you've got to pay this by X date or your child cannot come back. I have not heard that from one clinic I spoke to yet, which makes me realize that these people who run these clinics, their hearts are in the right place. Our goal for this year is we're going to open the scholarship program up to one clinic. That would be the pediatric therapy clinic. And that's not me being biased. That's just because that's where I had the connections when I first started this organization. We loved it there. That's for a couple reasons. The main reason being, and people reaching out to me have already confirmed this, my original thought was, if I set scholarship application packets out at all these clinics, what happens if 40 people sign up in the first month and I have no money raised yet to fund these. These people are going to sit back and go, well, I applied, I never heard back. This thing must be a scam. Whereas if we build up our fund first by fundraising and applying for grants, which we are actively doing, then we can open it up. If we're down to a single clinic, maybe we'll get 5 to 10, which is much more manageable for us to fund. As we continue to grow, I already have a list of ABA therapy clinics in Billings who are second, third, fourth, and fifth on the list saying, hey, once you're bigger, we want to get on the list so we can open up the scholarship program here. I've already had meetings with several of them saying, hey, this is amazing. Like, nobody else is doing something like this for the autism community specifically. We want to be on board. How can we help? These clinics are even offering to sponsor or co-sponsor events by putting their name on them without even having our scholarship program be open to them yet. That's how much they care about autistic children. One specifically is the Advanced Therapy Clinic on 17th. When I met with them, they fell in love with the idea and the organization, knowing that it came from someone who has actually, been in the position of a parent with a child who's autistic. They love the idea. They want to be a part of as many events as possible because, in their words, not mine, helping autistic children is the main goal. It doesn't matter what clinic is being paid for what, right? And I always like to make it clear, although we are paying $200 an hour, autistic parents are generally paying $200 an hour for that. In your head, if there's 20 kids going to a clinic, you're thinking this clinic is making millions of dollars. They're playing the insurance game just like everyone else has to, where the insurance is mandating, hey, we're paying you X amount of dollars per unit. Feel free to bill us whatever you want, but this is what we are paying. So these clinics are not money grabbers. I never want my data to suggest that, because I want to protect the clinics because they're doing the hard work. I just always like to make it clear, they're not pocketing all of that money. They're playing the insurance game, and the insurances are mandating, hey, we're only paying X amount of dollars per unit for this ABA therapy. There's legislature that has been passed that stated, we actually had a senator from Montana who pushed a bill through in 2011 or 2012 stating that insurances had to accept ABA therapy on part of their plan for what they cover. So prior to 2011, insurances in Montana did not have to cover or offer anything for ABA therapy. So although we've advanced a lot in the last 14 years, I don't know how or if clinics were around before then, which is sad because that means kids weren't getting a lot of help that they do need. So we've had a lot of good things happening. I hope the 504s and the IEPs stay in place because those are important too. I mean, you have your 504 IEP meetings with the principal or your teacher all the time. Our kid goes to Broadwater. They've been really good to us there so far, but I have heard a lot of horror stories of the school district not, abiding by your IEP or your 504. I'm sure a lot of parents have felt that way, which is unfortunate. I would love to have some sort of talk like this with the school district or with teachers. I'm not assuming that they're uneducated, but some of them might not know exactly how to handle a special needs child. Not everyone is blessed with a teacher who can say, yeah, I used to be a SPED teacher. I know what to do. That is definitely not the case with all of them. And the teachers are doing a ton of work too. I mean, handling 30 kids at one time is tough, let alone when you have 30 neurotypical kids and then this one kid who has special needs. That's got to be difficult too. So in the broader lens, this thing has become so much more than I ever thought it would be, as far as the public outreach. Like I said, the amount of parents who have called me, emailed me, asking how to get on the list for scholarships, how they can help. Ironically enough, the people who have donated through our website, because you can donate straight through our website. You get your receipt for your accountant at the end of the year. You just get your receipt automatically when you donate. The people who have donated have been other parents of autistic children, which is wild because I created this so I could help those people, but naturally they know what it takes, so they can see the vision a lot more clearly because they're literally going through it like the rest of us are. So yeah, it's it's come a long way in 9 months. I will say that. Aside from my board, which I'm gracious for them, but naturally those are volunteer positions, and like Kayla, they all have jobs, so they're not boots on the ground like I am. But we have accomplished a ton in a short period of time. I can't wait to see where we're at a year from now. I'm hoping we're at least 2 clinics by this time next year, accepting scholarships. So the biggest roadblock, I guess you would say, of doing this is learning how to apply for grants. I I'm a blue collar worker. I have been forever. I had zero clue what I was doing when applying for grants. I didn't know if it was as simple as going online to a foundation's website and say, "Hey, apply here. This is your mission statement. Here's your goal." Poof, check comes in. That is not the case. I have no idea how to navigate some of the grant maker programs online. That's very difficult. I'm actively looking for someone who would like to work with us to write grants on our behalf, because me taking all the time learning, I just don't have the extra hours in a day. I track my time through a timer via my board's request, just so we could eventually value my time. If we get successful, this is my dream job. Naturally, I'm not taking a paycheck for a couple of years, probably, which I'm totally good with. I didn't do this for money or anything like that, but this is my dream job. I track my time on average since, I would probably say, October, November. I've been working 60 to 70 hours a week on this, which is a lot. It's 6 days a week most of the time. Sometimes I don't work Saturdays, but most of the time I have been, just because there's so much to do. I didn't think that there would be literally that much stuff to do on a nonprofit, but there is a ton. There's so much behind the scenes that goes on with any organization, but just starting this off of a whim, I had zero clue. But it's been really cool. I cannot wait for our first event so I can actually meet these other kids, and introduce my son to them. Maybe they can form some friendships. That would be great too. But we just want everyone involved. We want everyone included. That's kind of the goal, aside from raising money for these people who really are struggling. The $11,000 we had out of pocket is not uncommon from what I've heard so far. We're probably on the low end, if you want my honest opinion, of what we would owe per year. Just speaking to other people, that's probably lower than what most owe. So there's a massive, massive need just in our community for this. It's just pushing our message out and getting businesses to believe in this and people to give us their hard-earned money, just so they can see this thing come to fruition. I can sit here and talk all day that I want to do scholarships, but as of right now, we can't do them yet until we have money to give away. So that part's been a little tough, but we're getting there. Slow and steady wins the race, right? So, yeah, that's really it on how and why it started. Like I said, I'm just a regular dad. I'm nothing. I'm not special. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah. Hi, Tim. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. And I'm excited. Do you guys, by any chance, have like a newsletter that you're going to send out?
So I have an email sign up on our website for our newsletter. I have yet to integrate that with one of our email platforms. I'm probably just going to use our donation platform called GiveButter, which does allow us to send out newsletters. But that is something that I'm actively working on. Again, it's just bulk writing out these emails and deciding what content I want to put on there. I'm open to suggestions on what kind of content people would want to see. I don't want to just repeatedly blast people with facts about autism. I definitely want the public facing events, not our private events. I want our public events to be in our newsletter too. It's because of my extensive workload. It's getting there, I guess you could say, Kara. But yeah, it's definitely something that I want to do because I think it's important, and people still do read email. Contrary to belief, people still do read email a lot, and I want that to pop up in their inbox, and so people are reading that and just we're consistently in people's minds. That's kind of the goal. So to answer your question, the long version, yes, I definitely do want to do that. It is on the docket.
I also, I do want to point out where I'm a parent of a child that a female specific that has autism. I do want to point this out when we're talking about providers, MDs specifically, is it gets tricky because they're specifically trained in anatomy, right?
Yeah.
And then we go in and we're just like, help us with cognitive and like DSM-5 stuff. Not that they're not aware of DSM-5 stuff, but that's not their genre. Like their rule is strictly anatomy. And so we're going in and we're like, we need. And their first go-to is totally just anatomy. And so it gets tricky for us, especially when we're like advocating. I do want to point out that there is a significant bias, female versus male, and how the extraordinary delay there takes to diagnose a female is like criminal. Okay, like women in their 50s like getting diagnosed, which is like not okay. So I always, when I talk about autism, I always want to like point out that there is a significant difference between males and females, and males always get like the most attention brought to it versus females. And efficacy that needs to go into females is so much higher. That's the I'm navigating. Right?
No, you're fine. I think it's 1 in 4, right? 1 in every 4 autistic children are a girl, meaning it's more prevalent in boys. And I don't think it's actually more prevalent. I think it's just harder to screen girls, is from what the data I've read says. It's much harder to screen a female as opposed to a male, just the way that they work, and the signs are not as clear in females as are in boys. So naturally, girls probably, if they get screened, they might just squeak through the diagnosis and not actually get diagnosed. Then it happens later in life. Or the pediatrician doesn't send the referral because they're like, hey, there's not really showing any signs to me. But yes, like I said before, I love doctors. They save our lives. I'm not faulting anybody, but I do advocate for people, like you said, being stern with your doctor. That is not their profession. If somebody were to come up to me and say, hey, I want help with this legal advice, naturally you would refer them to someone who's that. I just want, I guess my goal would to be, if a parent is advocating to their doctor, I would just want the doctor to not automatically say, hey, let's refer you to an autism specialist. That would be ideal. I don't know how the medical field works. So I don't know if you get docked for referrals or if you don't.
Can I say something? So
sure.
as the doctor on the list here,
yeah,
I kind of disagree, Kara. I think that was true, that we only believed in anatomy and
well, I did have
diagnosis, but that
he was like, I'm just, like I can't. And I was like, okay, that's fair. Like they're not sitting there reading the DSM-5 again.
No, but we do. And we all should be, and all the pediatricians and everybody else should be using screeners for autism, right? The MCHAT. They can easily pull them out, at least from 18 months to, 3 through 3. They can pull them out. And no, I mean, I do think I agree. You just have to be a little insistent and say, I really am concerned. And maybe the referral will be first to a speech therapist or something, but and I agree, girls are really hard. That's why my clinic likes to see girls, because it's so hard to diagnose them.
Yeah. Like I said, doctors are amazing. I guess I like Dr. Nicholson's verbiage, not stern, but insistent. You're the best person who can advocate for your child since you're with them all the time. So,
as a female, I do, although since I'm a female, it is, looked down upon as a female. So my road is just roadblock after roadblock because I am female and she is female. And so it's a trigger, like, to be totally honest, I'm not gonna lie. It's a trigger for these doctors. They don't want a dominant female asking and advocating. It really bothers them. So I do always want to point out that is a barrier, and we have to honor that barrier too.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like Dr. Nicholson said, girls are much harder to diagnose. I'm not a doctor, so I have no idea why. I just pull the statistics from the CDC, and that's just how it is. 1 in every 4, 1 in every 5 kids are a female. I don't know if it's more prevalent in boys. If that's the actual case, it's just more prevalent in boys. I think girls are just a lot harder to screen.
Hey, face it, girls are better at social communication.
Right.
I was going to say that's where the masking comes in really, really, really well. Yeah.
Sure.
I was diagnosed with ADHD at 31 and Bryce was diagnosed with, so like I totally can see how that happened. I think masking for me was just, I just knew how to do that. So I'm assuming a lot of women who are diagnosed later in life or, right, like after the, 18 to 3-year-old range, I'm sure that they're,
and
social skills.
Let's be real, Caleb. Back in the early 90s when we were young, you're just told to deal with your stuff.
Yeah.
That's just how it was. It was pretty much like, hey, buck up. Which that's definitely not the case in our society now. If you need help, just, and everyone says if you need help, just get it. Well, sometimes it's not that easy, as Kara is literally pointing out. It's not that easy to just go say, yeah, I need help. Okay, here's the help. There's a lot of hoops and stuff that you have to jump through. And then you throw a kid on top of that who has special needs. Then you turn into this advocate super parent, and sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's tough. Like I said, we were blessed with a pediatrician. The first meeting we ever had, or the first appointment we had with her, where my wife, who is with him all the time because she's a stay-at-home, I'm working, said, hey, I'm noticing these things. She immediately sent a referral so we could see Dr. King. Then we had to wait 8 months to get in to see him. So that's where the time just keeps adding on and adding on and adding on. And then after that, when Dr. King says, yeah, you have a diagnosis, then you can finally get into a clinic. The clinics have wait lists too. So by then your child is almost 3, although you found out before he was 2. So that's just it. The time just compounds and it keeps adding and adding. So but the point I was making is, back in the day, it was just, hey, you just dealt with it. I mean, there's a lot of people who didn't believe depression existed, 30, 40 years ago. You were just a sad person, but lo and behold, it's a real thing that lots of people deal with. People just need help. And when kids need help, sometimes they literally cannot say the help that they need. They're not like us adults who go to the doctor with an ailment and say, hey, I've got this pain here. Okay, here's some medications. When it's, it's when you're a neurodivergent person, you might not be able to say what you need. So that's when the parent has to step in and say, hey, we need this help. I mean, did you ever think you would be diagnosed at 30 with ADHD? I mean, how long did you suspect you had it before then even?
I didn't. Yeah, because my brother was very obvious growing up. He was a boy, he was hyper, he was, And with me, I was like, I just feel so bad for him because there's like nothing wrong, such a naive, like there's nothing wrong with me. And I just feel so bad that he has all these. Well, then I got out into the real world, not in my like structure. Yeah. And, then I became a mom and then it was more like life happening to me that slowly like made me realize that. I was like, whoa, I don't know if I'm equipped for this like everyone else is. Right. Everyone else seems like they're handling this really well. And I am at times, but I'm just not at times also. So Patty, did you have a question? Sorry, I just realized that popped up.
Yeah, I was actually just going to ask him which community he's in. I'm in Helena. I was just curious.
Oh, we are based in Billings.
Oh, Billings. Okay.
Yep.
And then so what is your website? I know it's probably on that flyer.
It's the spectrumhopefund.com or the spectrumhopefund.org. They both direct you to the same place. Yep. And it's just
awesome.
The Spectrum Hope Fund, FUND.com.
Okay.
I put both of those links in the comments too. So the website and the Facebook page. Just so I think you can click on them that way.
One thing I do like to point out is, so we have our main Facebook page, which is just the Spectrum Hope Fund, but we built a private group attached to that, which is the Spectrum Connection. It's just a support group for parents of children who have special needs. There's lots of parents in there whose kids have special needs who aren't autistic. That we didn't want it to just be closed off to autism. We wanted parents with any child with a disability to go in there and be able to share their stories in a judgment-free zone, so they could say, hey, I had a really rough day at the store today, or hey, my kid had an explosion at school. How is everyone else handling that? That's my goal for that group, is just to have our own little support group basically in there. So if you're having a rough day, you can go in there and post anonymously if you want, and just get some tips from other people who may have had a special needs child a lot longer than you have, or just get different viewpoints. Since you're so focused in on it, you might just need to take a step back, listen to someone else saying, hey, we went through this exact thing, here's what we did. It may or may not help you. We're not giving medical advice in there. This group is specifically for parents to just say, they can just vent, right? Because one thing my wife and I learned was, when we had kids, your friend group vanishes, because like us, we were the first group of friends to have children. So the party days are gone. You can't just go out for beers whenever you want to, if that's your thing. You can't just go to the baseball game whenever you want to. So your friend group's gone. Then you add on a child with special needs, your world gets even smaller, aside from maybe your parents or your grandparents, so venting is pretty much to each other, and that puts a lot of strain on relationships. I mean, I think the special needs community has the highest divorce rate among married partners in all of the other communities combined. I believe I saw that statistic, that divorce is significantly higher when you have a special needs child than it's not. And that's not a fault of the parents at all. I think that's just, you vent to each other so much, and if you don't agree, where it's nice to have outside venture sometimes, right? It would be nice to speak to another mom or speak to another dad. There's not a lot of dads who vent about their problems in general. There's not a lot of dads who are like me, who have an autistic child. There are, but I haven't, conversed with them yet. Us as men, we're just naturally hold all of our stuff in and bottle it up, right? I would love to speak to another dad and say, hey man, how are you handling the outbreaks, or how are you handling the physical outbreaks? Because some people have kids who get violent. They lash out, and they can't control their emotions. So your partner is there to support you, but it would still be nice to talk to someone else, right? I think everyone can agree with that. Sometimes you just need to take a step back. Like, I want to talk to so-and-so. That's what the group would be, is to just get support. The hardest thing has been getting people to open up to start. We had a group of people flood into the group when we launched it. Getting people to start sharing their stories naturally is tough. You don't want to tell complete strangers that you're going through tough stuff, right? We just had someone in there who was asking about a different disability from autism the other day as a mom, and she was just asking if anyone knew of any resources. Naturally, I don't know anything about anything else but autism. I still feel like I probably know 1% about autism right now, having a child for the last 6 years who had it. But I just did some searching for this gal, sent her these links, and hopefully that helped her. I have no idea if it did. I'm not in her world. That's just kind of the goal for that support group. Naturally, we do have the bigger Facebook pages, like the special needs billings page is fairly large on there. I've been making a point to be more active in there too, simply because unless you see it, you really don't know about it. That's why I want to use our platform and broadcast this stuff. Say, hey, if you're struggling, even if you're not struggling, if you're doing really well and you want to offer support, come into our group and say, hey, here's what we can do. We can help you.
And there's special needs group. There's it's called Montana Family Connections. It's a Circle of Parents group, and it's online.
Okay.
It's Tuesday of every month, and it's 8 to 9, but it is for parents with children with special needs. And I can send you that link.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. There's all sorts of groups like that. I think there's even a special needs Billings moms group, all of these things are important. I just felt that it was vital for us to make one too. Not that we needed another one, but we did need another one. I don't think there can be too many. That's kind of the point. We're not competing with anybody here. This is not a race to get to the end. It's just kind of a thing. One thing I did want to circle back to was when Dr. Nicholson was talking about the MChat. That's something that I actually know a lot about. So when I found that on the internet, two things popped in my brain. This would have been really handy had we known about it 6 years ago, when we were having these questions with ourselves. If I could have found that literature and said, hey, let's go through this checklist and maybe there's some things here. I actually built our own version of that with different questions, but I kind of modeled it after the MChat, mainly so I wouldn't get sued by them saying, hey, this is copyright infringement or something like that. So that's called the H.O.P.E checklist. And again, there's disclaimers on there that saying this is not a diagnosis. From the best of our ability, check off these boxes. If you marked, X number of things, especially in the social interaction part, no, maybe talk to your pediatrician about getting a screening. But that's just a document we can hand out at events to people who may be suspecting that their child may be autistic. We can at least give them that literature and say, hey, feel free to take this, fill it out with your kid. If you have concerns, schedule a meeting with your pediatrician. As your kid gets older, the meetings with your doctor go from, what is it, when you have a baby, once every 6 months or once every 3 months even. When they hit age 1 or 2, those get way spread out where you see your doctor once a year. So like us, I think a lot of parents fall into the thing, well, we're seeing these signs. We don't see the doctor for another 6 months. I guess we'll just wait. We don't want people to wait. That's kind of the thing. From what I understand, ABA therapy works. I don't want to say it works better, but it's more effective the younger they start. That's coming directly from clinics. Not saying it's not effective on older kids either, but the earlier the better. So that's what I've been advocating for. Like I said, we started at age 2, which is very early. I think we had the youngest child going to ABA therapy at the clinic when he was there. I don't know when Kayla's son started there, but we started after her. So yeah, it's just something I wanted to throw out there about the MChat is I created our own little thing like that. So I'm waiting to see if it gets out there and if the creators of the MChat come back to me and say, hey, this is a big no-go. Here's our letter from our attorney. You better take this down right now, or change this number of things on it. So I would really like somebody who knows a lot more in the field about me to possibly write that checklist with me. That would be ideal.
I'm gonna add some of those on there and say, like, does your child watch YouTube videos in other languages? Yeah. Does your child rewatch 5 seconds of a video and then rewind it and watch it again over? Yeah, I think that some of those also need to be added on the MChat, because if I would have seen that, I'd been like, he does do that. He does do that.
I think our rewind button on our remote for YouTube is probably more now, because it's the same scene over and over and over again.
Oh yeah.
And of course, we have the people who say, why do you give your kid that much screen time? We could dive into that too. That's just our kids' way of calming down.
The MChat's not perfect either. There's a lot of debate about it. It's hard to make the right checklist.
I don't think there is a right checklist, honestly. The spectrum's so wide, so I don't think there's a certain box that you can say, poof, if you check that box, that kid is autistic 100%. I don't think that exists. So had I known about that, I would have asked Dr. King when we had our meeting with him. I would have said, hey, we filled out this MChat. How relevant is it to you as a specialist? You're the person who's going to give me this autism diagnosis. How important is us filling this MChat out for you? I want to create our own sheet so a doctor will look at it and go, wow, I agree with a lot of this stuff because I helped write a lot of this stuff. That would be ideal. I think it would give our organization a big stamp of approval if we had someone on board who was willing to do that type of stuff with us. We could say, hey, this professional, without risking their career, obviously, this professional has helped us build this document out, etc. So I just think it's super valuable, but there's no right answer. With autism, you can't see anything. It's not a chromosome mix up like Down syndrome is. You physically cannot see. There's no physical attributes. If you look at minor Kayla's kid from afar, you're not going to be able to tell unless they're actively stemming. They just look like kids, which makes it another hard reason as a parent to go, well, maybe there's nothing wrong with our kid. I don't know. And I don't consider autism a disability at all. I just don't. I think it's one of our other board members has an autistic child. So there's 3 of us on the board who have autistic children. That was one thing that I wanted to make that really important, that I wasn't the only person in the organization who had come from this life, because all of these board members who may not know about autism would be relying on me for all the information. I wanted multiple parents on the board to say, hey, here's our input, here's this input, this is what I think we should do with this. This worked with us. I thought that was super important. So she calls her child's autism a superpower, right?
Yeah.
Which I love. One of the biggest. Thank you, Aaron. One of the biggest.
I'm gonna close this out, and then I'm gonna stop the recording. But thank you guys all for joining this Family First Wednesday. And this conversation has been awesome. And thank you, Tim, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.